Hello there, this is 95th Rimmer. I'm just going to take you through a few basic steps in Supreme Commander. Okay, here we are. We start with our opening screen here. I'm just going to play a very small map, Finn's Revenge, and I'm going to be playing a Cybran, and the Tech AI is going to be playing a UEF. Here we start. We just start with a few basic things. Just going to pop a couple of power generators up here, and then we start to queue up some of the other items. You just hold down the shift key here and you can queue up as many items as you want. If you misplace them, you can just drag them around and reposition them. So there we go, we have a few items queued up for you there. I'm just going to take you through a couple of other things. I'm just recording this using Fraps at the minute. It's recording at about 1280 by 1024, so hopefully you should get a fairly good quality visual out of it. This is my first tutorial, just covering the very basics of Supreme Commander. Hopefully the later ones I'll move on to more advanced tactics and give you a better idea of how the game plays at later stages. So here we are, we have the commander is just now finally building the factory. And notice how the factory is not even built and I'm just queuing up 5 workers to immediately come out. So I have a bit more building power once it's up and running. Notice in the bottom right hand corner there you've got a little scoreboard. You can access that by pressing the F2 key. That sort of keeps track of how the game's going score wise. Various things make up that score, including your resource generating ability, your military assets and other little bits here and there. Okay, so here we are, we've got the factory complete. He's now putting out our very first worker. There we go. And I'm just going to get him to make a couple of mass extractors all around the map. It's a good idea to try and get some of these workers out straight away to get as much mass as you can coming out. Mass often tends to be the limiting factor in these. So there we go, we just queued the commander up with a couple more build options here. I'm going to be playing this a little bit differently to how you might normally play in a match, just to try and demonstrate most of the aspects of the game up to the very sort of high-end tech levels. As you can see from the score in the bottom right hand corner here, we've already got the AI's already overtaken me on its initial building. Okay, there we go, we just got a worker set away to build a hydrocarbon plant. They produce about 100 power per second. You can see the top resources here, you've got plus 43 energy here and minus 8 mass. And that's basically an indicator of how well your economy is doing. So I'm in positive energy. It's always not wise to have a positive energy output. Okay, so we're just getting a worker here, and we're actually setting him to go all the way across the sea there, over to the little island, just to see if we can set up a little base, just to throw in a bit more resources really.
System enabled.
If you look in the bottom corner now, you can see the icon flashing there. It's the commander's overcharge ability, which we've just been told is active. This is an extremely powerful attack that basically destroys anything in its path. You notice how I'm spacing these 2 apart. This is so I can have a row of power generators in between. You get something called a synergy bonus if you keep an object that provides energy or mass next to a factory, for example. Basically that reduces the cost of everything you produce from that factory, so it's a good idea to try and surround your base on as many fronts as you can. And there we are, a little forward position there with a little radar dish and a couple of point defences and anti-air just being built by that worker over there. And again, a couple of naval factories and a sonar station there. Right, so it's time to queue these up. Notice how I just put the units there in blocks of 5. If you hold down the shift key, it'll just, and click on a unit, it'll add 5 of them rather than just 1. It's a quick way of queuing up quite a lot. Okay, here we can see the radar dish is selected, and that ring around is the radar coverage. And already we have our first anti-air unit out, and he's firing at the scouts that are flying over my base. You see that metal extractor there? Basically we've got that one upgrading to level 2. Instead of producing 3 mass per turn, it'll produce 6. And the third stage produces, I believe, 12. But of course, while it's upgrading there, you can't actually get the output from that metal extractor, so it's advisable to do 1 or 2 at a time. Slowly build up your production. But it's often a good idea to start doing that right from the very get-go. Start getting things upgraded, plan your economy with that in mind. Okay, then we have my little engineer unit over there just got wiped out by one of the enemy engineers, just reclaiming me. And here we are. It's a good idea to always keep your enemy base scouted out, so I've just set a scout on the pattern there. So I don't actually need to watch him. I can if I want to, but even if he dies, I'll be left with an image of what the base looked like at the time when you flip over. And here we are, just this little side base, just building up a few defences here, just to make sure my guy doesn't get wiped out. So what I'm doing here is I'm queuing up a factory, so it's actually going to move everything just south of southwest of the base, and then it's going to set a patrolling path. So everything that factory produces now will go on that patrol route. It's quite a nice way to set up an air defensive ring around your base. Of course, something you need to watch out doing that is the fuel levels of your aircraft. After a while, if you don't have a air repair facility, they won't come back and refuel, and you might end left up with lots of aircraft circling around with no fuel, and that's not a good idea because they move about a third the speed. So here we have an enemy bomber. He's just trying to basically go over my land and bomb all my mass extractors. Unfortunately we've got a few air defensive units there, but definitely air defense is something you need to work on at the start. It's often wise just to have a couple of the cheap air defense units out. There's no real initial need to pump up loads of static defences against air. They're quite expensive to build, so often a couple of the mobile units will suffice for the immediate start of the game. Okay, so there we have, we just cancelled a few units there, and I'm just now queuing up alternate things for this factory to produce, and I'm getting them to all stage at a point near that enemy front line. Again, we have a few more interceptors there. They're just going to patrol a square, a straight line across the base there. They're not actually going to fly in exactly that straight line. They'll obviously circle around because they need to turn, so it will turn into a rough sort of ellipse arc. You can see that I've got my commander there, just helping to assist upgrade this. I'm just queuing up mass storage areas here. As I mentioned earlier, that synergy bonus. You can actually get a synergy bonus from providing mass storage directly around a mass extractor point, and it'll actually increase the final output of a Tech 3 from 12 to 18, so it can well be worth it. You can put power reactors around it, which also provide a bonus, but all they do is discount the power that the mass extractor uses, which isn't really very much, to be honest. It's only a couple of units anyway, so there's not really that big a difference. And there we are, just continuing on with the upgrade cycles of getting those mass extractors up to their full potential. Right, so we've got a small task force here. We're just sending them out, and here we are, just attacking one of the enemy's mass extractors. It's often a good idea to harass them in the early stages especially. It stops them getting the resources from them, keeps them busy while you're building up your own bases as well. So what I've got here, a few artillery units. I'm actually just sending artillery on their own there, because if I was to send a regular tank, they'd come inside the range of the defence guns there and get blown up quite easily. So these artillery should shell the defence from a distance and hopefully take them all down without losing a single one. There we go, here we can see the base and all the power lines coming out from the generators into the base, providing that little bit of a boost to the factory. And then we have the shelling. It's fairly effective. There's only 3 units there. They've managed to almost take out 3 defences, which cost considerably more mass to put up. Now if this was a human, of course, they'd probably counter with some units of their own, so it's often a good idea to have a couple of tanks just assisting them. And we notice over this island here, my little guy's actually been wiped out. So I suspect before he actually got the first defence up, he was killed by one of the enemy engineers, probably captured. So here you can see it's a constant sort of battle to try and keep your mass extractors. That's an old termination analogy there. Up to date. It's a good idea to try and keep your economy balanced. And here we have the shipyards. They're just putting out a few subs and a few frigates. So what I'm doing is I'm cancelling them, but I'm cancelling them down to 1 unit, because 1 unit is partially built already. If I was to cancel it completely, I'd lose the progress and all the resources expended in that. So I'm just cancelling down to 1 and then causing the factory to upgrade itself to tech level 2. Here we have the commanders assisting my factory to upgrade to Tech 2. Often a good idea to have several factories of each type, so you can get one, especially land factory, upgrading to a higher tech while the other ones keep producing units. That way you keep your tech continually upgrading at the same time as being able to chuck out military units. So at the minute we're just building up our forces slowly here, trying to keep all the resource generating things balanced. Notice how the mass is still, despite the fact it keeps fluxing between positive and negative, but it's generally always run out. Here we are, just building a couple of Tech 2 reactors here all over the base. The reason I'm doing it in this particular pattern, I'm leaving enough gaps for shield generators to go in between them, so sort of planning ahead, and shield generators between power generators specifically get a reduced cost of operating them, so it can be another good idea to do. Oh, here we have a enemy gunship. This is Tech 2 gunship. Fortunately, my patrolling interceptors have just taken him down. Right, my one little engineer on this island has just managed to recapture that, and I'll get him trying to build these defences up again. Hopefully this time he won't get intercepted. I'm not really expending too many resources here. There's two mass points over there. If he gets wiped out again, I probably won't bother carrying on. Again, just queuing these mass storage devices around it to get the bonus out of the extractor. It's only really worth doing that mass storage around the extractors once they hit Tech 2. At Tech 1 it actually provides very little bonus at all. At Tech 2 it starts to be a little bit noticeable, but actually building the mass storage themselves costs a fair bit of mass, so it's more of a plan for the long term game. And here we have just a couple of air staging and refuelling facilities quite near to the patrolling aircraft path, so they don't have to fly too far should they need to refuel. They will automatically come back there if they're heavily damaged or need some fuel. And just a shield generator to defend that little outpost, along with a couple of anti-aircraft flat guns and a few Tech 2 point defences should they break through the front lines. So you can see now the mass we're generating, plus 31 now. We're starting to get to a point where we're getting into the positive mass side of things. You don't want mass to go to waste because it does take quite a lot to harvest it. So at this point we're just going to upgrade some of the factories to the next tech level and start using up all that extra mass. Again, just continuing the slow upgrade process. Now I've got a bit more of economy behind me. I can actually get these upgrading a couple at a time, and even get one upgrading and then to Tech 2 and then straight away to Tech 3. Okay, we hit a bit of a power crisis now, as you can see, minus 300 odd. So we're just building some Tech 2 reactors. That should take the strain off immediately. But for the time being we're hitting negative energy, which is not a good idea. When you hit negative energy, it causes all kinds of problems. Your shields drop down, you lose radar coverage, and various things like your mass extractors stop functioning 100% efficiency as they lose power required to power them to get the mass out of the ground. At the moment it's not too critical that I'm in a negative energy, so we can live with it for a little while, just for the minute. Otherwise I'd have to go around pausing all my production, which to be honest is a bit of a hassle. And we've got a few patrol craft here. I'm just going to send them round to the coast to defend that position, to make sure there's no naval units come out of their base to challenge my ground units. Here we're just upgrading the naval facilities, again dropping the production down to 1 so we don't waste the one that's currently being built, and building a mix of ships here. Generally speaking, destroyers probably take about twice as long to construct as cruisers. Destroyers have a lot more land-based firepower and sea-based firepower. Cruisers are the more sort of air defence type of sea unit, with the UEF ones having tactical missiles, which can be quite useful, but again very slow fire rates, so a destroyer will still take out a cruiser. Now we're just extending our patrol path to actually cover that little island now we've got it secure. You can see the resources going a bit nuts at the minute. The shield's gone up and it's trying to take power to power the shield, but of course the Tech 2 reactor that's needed to power such a heavy cost energy item isn't up. So at the minute the whole thing's in flux, as the mass extractors don't have the power to create or to generate any mass. Now you see, as soon as the power generator comes online, both figures stabilise. So it's always a good idea to keep your energy in good supply. Again, a good target for destruction of an enemy base really. If you spot power generators, try and go for them, especially if they're Tech 3 ones. They tend to have a rather explosive radius, being fusion reactors. And often just taking out their power generators, if they happen to be outside of a shielded area, can cause a bit of an energy crisis and drop their shields, making it a lot easier to attack. You may tend to find towards the sort of later stages of the game, or midway onwards, you start to get a huge mass deficit as you're trying to build more and more heavy constructions, and your mass extractors can't really cope with the output. This is why it's a good idea to keep these upgrading right from the word go. Often you can end up forgetting about it for 20 minutes, and then you've got a real problem because you're trying to play catch up with these and keep your economy going at the same time. You might ask there, why is the commander assisting a mass extraction point upgrading when I'm in negative mass anyway? It's basically shifting the quantity of mass that is being, or mass and energy that's being put into that device as it's upgrading. If I've got one engineer upgrading something, for example, he might be providing 10 mass and 500 energy. If I get a commander, he might provide another 10 mass and 500 energy. That'll shift the balance of your economy more towards upgrading that one device. So if there is something that you really need built really fast, it can often be a good idea to get lots of workers on it, even if you've got a huge economy built up. There we have just a small battle with the air interceptors there. A couple of his interceptors went into my flight path, and my patrolling guys just took him straight down. And we're just moving a couple of units a bit up on the left hand side here. So although we can't actually see the units constructing that mass storage, we can see the beams of light coming out of their engineering units. That's that area there is the fog of war. I've not already mentioned that. It's basically just the visual range of your units. So although I can see the two dots retreating by radar, I can't actually visually see the units until my units get a bit closer, or I send a scout over. What I'm doing here is formation moving. By holding down the right mouse button when you move, you can then rotate around and do a formation move. When the units move this way, they'll keep together as best they can in a nice group. Whereas if you just right click straight away, they'll filter in one at a time. Often it's a good idea to keep them in big battle groups when you're attacking an enemy, especially going up against fixed defences. If you go in one at a time, you'll just get slaughtered. If you go in all at once, you've got a good chance of overwhelming the defences and surviving. So you can see on the right hand side here, this group is actually designated Group 2. I've got my ships as Group 1. You can designate these groups just by pressing Control, and after that you can access them from the side. Your commander will always be up there as well, and if you spot any engineer icons up there as well, that means that engineer's not doing anything. Always a good idea to keep your engineers occupied if you have the resources. So these guys, they're only basically Tech 1, very basic units, so they're taking quite a while to kill these little structures here, even though there's a fair few of them. Again, once more, just continuing with the upgrade of the infrastructure all the time until they hit Tech level 3. Once they hit Tech level 3, you start to produce Tech level 3 buildings, like mass fabricators, that can produce large quantities of mass anyway. So you're constantly evolving your economy in one way or another. So here we have the first Tech 3 engineer queuing up some fusion reactors, and just a shield generator after he's finished those 3, just to keep them all defending. Okay, here we have a siege bot. This is a Tech 3 unit. As you can see, he's just completely broken through my front line of Tech 1 units. Absolutely just obliterating, walking straight by without barely noticing. So we've got a bit of a problem here. We don't have many Tech 3 units. Oh, and as you can see, what I've done there is I've left the factory producing Tech 3 engineers, but I'd actually set the rally point to push them all to the front line for the military units. Something to watch for in the future. So now I've got my Tech 3 engineers stranded out a little bit and possibly subject to this siege bot's attack. So I've just got a group of bombers here that were just lying around on the ground. They were just sort of there as a reserve. So now I'm going to use them to try and attack this siege bot. At the same time, I'm queuing up the siege bots myself and getting the commander to assist, so I can try and get as many out as quickly as possible to make a bit of an emergency defense screen here. There we go, the bomb's starting to fly down now, and it's taken this guy out quite nicely. So even though I'm being attacked on that right side, I'm still going to press the small attack I've got on the left side there, just to keep the enemy occupied at all times. Now we've got a few siege bots of our own, just going to get him heading off towards it. Likewise, the bombers are doing their job there, weakening him so when he hits my siege bot, he's going to die fairly quickly. So now we're starting to churn out some Tech 3 and Tech 2 ground units. Hopefully within a short order we should have a short attack force to push forward with. So what we're doing here, we're just planning a small defensive line there. Just getting a Tech 2 engineer to go out to the front lines. I'm just going to move what military units I have up to the front lines shortly, just to keep him defended while he starts to build that as well. Now that little island's pretty much of no much further use to me, it's just sitting there generating resources. Not really going to invest much time in that, so just get the engineer back to do whatever we can back over here. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm just upgrading the commander, basically to a Tech 2 engineering suite. What this allows him to do is build Tech 2 structures. As well as that, it increases the rate which he can push out the resources using his construction beam. So that will build units, generally speaking, faster. Obviously the Tech 2 units take more resources to build, so it kind of balances out. But it does mean towards the end of the game you can certainly pump out some of the lower units extremely fast. As you can see over there, I've actually lost my entire attack force on the left hand side. They've probably been wiped out by static defences. That's okay because they're only basic Tech 1 units, not much resources invested in that. And we're starting to get our first destroyers and cruisers out. What I've got here, as well as just the commander, I've got a couple of units assisting the commander there. That just helps speed up the upgrades, keeps things flowing really. Sometimes without things assisting him, if your economy's stalling especially, it can be extremely slow to upgrade them. Here we have an enemy cruiser just sitting off the coast there. Cruisers are very good for air defence, hence all the bombers falling out of the sky. I'm just going to get some of the ground units actually right up close so they can take him out. So there you can see cruisers really aren't designed for ground attacks or sea-based attacks. They're more on the long range sort of artillery of the sea really. And sort of guardians of the fleet, so to speak. So now we've got a fairly good defensive line there. We're just going to build a few anti-air flak batteries and a shield generator. Notice the shield circumference didn't actually encompass my entire front line there. What I'm going to have to do obviously to that one is expand it so that it will cover that. And here we have a strategic bomber. He's just taken out my Poland Tech 1 frigates. Obviously he can't shoot the subs because they're under the water unless he has a torpedo bomber. So now we're just upgrading the commander with a resource allocation unit. Immediately you see the resources being set. This is quite a heavy thing to construct. Along with the Tech 3 engineering suite, it takes a lot of power here. So at this point my shields will have dropped. But you see the power's just gone up as we have some fusion power coming in now. Okay, so we've got a couple of naval units here, just some anti-air batteries and some torpedo turrets. We're just going to have a quick scout with some bombers and see if they can take some down. Obviously not, they're getting quite heavily damaged here. So just do another quick run there. Oh, they're getting shot out of the sky before they can even get there. That's pretty much the bombers gone. As you can see, the commander's just finished upgrading there, and we're just increasing the output of our air factory there, upgrading it. But as you notice, that upgrade was a lot faster. The commander's own Tech 2 engineering suite that I'd installed earlier allows him to upgrade faster as well as build faster. So there's often a good way to do these things. Building, for example, a resource allocation system right from the word go is probably not the best idea. It's worth upgrading his engineering capability first, if you're going to go down the line of an engineering commander. Okay, we're just now starting to tighten up the defence of the base here. It's getting to the point where the enemy could, if they want, make a bit of a push, especially with strategic bombers and things. So we're keeping the air defence up to date. As well as that, we want to start to get some shields online around the base if possible to help defend. Often a good idea to keep your commander sitting under one of these if he's not doing anything, just for that added protection to stop the stealth runs that people might attempt just to wipe out your commander. game we got here is actually set to assassination, so as soon as the enemy commander dies, that's pretty much it, game over. In most normal games, I personally would tend to set it to supremacy, so you have to wipe out all their units, which means even if they've got sub-commanders going, they can carry on and just keep the fight up, even though their commander's lost. Okay, we're just moving a few units up to the front lines here, preparing for a bit of a push. You can see we've got some artillery up online there. They can actually fire considerably further than most of the defences, but obviously very slow fire rate. Very good thing to have to disrupt the enemy lines, so to speak, send them into a bit of a panic as well. We're just patrolling the subs around the coast there, not really paying too much attention to them. If they find any naval bases, they'll try and take it out on the way. So now we've got most things up and running here. Just finishing off the last final upgrades to all these mass extractors to get their full potential up. Okay, so notice there one of my units has just actually died. That's the enemy's own artillery battery firing on it. Now's probably a good time to push forward. Don't want to leave them sitting around there just for target practice. I'm just assigning these interceptors to a group here, just in case I need some anti-air defense for my forward attacking group there. Okay, so here we are, some Seasports pushing forward, just wiping out the things on the way. Oh, here we are, some defences in the distance are starting to open up on these. They're going to have to fight their way through to the enemy base. We're just going to target the Tech 2 point defence. This is the most powerful sort of short-range battery. The artillery, although it's a threat, it's only going to fire every so often. So we'll go for that one next and then finish up with some of the Tech 1 defences. Oh, and the computer's made a bit of a mistake here. He's just brought his commander out. So with the units there, we're just going to fire on them. It looks like that commander's going to go down fairly fast. So that could be it. There we are, lovely little explosion there. As you can see, the blast wave spreading out. Very nice, impressive effect. As I said, this is recorded using fraps at about 1280 by 1024 resolution. Obviously I have to run it a bit lower so I can record at the same time, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what Supreme Commander's like at sort of high resolution. Finally we have the score here. This is another good indicator of how we've done throughout the game. You see that I've only actually wasted 7 mass, that's really good. This is 95th Rimmer. This has been my introductory tutorial to Supreme Commander. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.